In lesson 610, you will need your half circle protractor, and you will need the sheets that say drawing and measuring angles. Up at the top, it says use a straight edge to draw the following angles. Do not use a protractor. So I'm just going to use my ruler. The first one says any angle that measures less than 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and start with just a straight line. I know that the opening, it doesn't have to be straight across. The opening has to be less than 90 degrees. So I'm going to make mine quite a bit less than 90 degrees. This would be called an acute angle. I go ahead and put my arrows on the end. Now it's asking to call that angle A. So at the vertex, I'm going to put the letter A. The second one, B. Any angle that measures more than 90 and less than 180. So I'm going to go ahead with a straight line across the bottom. Remember, I'm calling this angle B, and it might intersect with my previous one, but that's okay. I want to make that more than 90 degrees. And it's intersecting or crossing over, but that's okay. And I'm calling this angle B, so label the vertex B. That's called an obtuse angle. And lastly, an angle that measures exactly 180 degrees. 180 degrees is a straight line. Still give it a vertex, and that would be called angle C, and that's called a straight angle. So I think you'll enjoy measuring and drawing angles today. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at our half circle protractor. I just have a white piece of paper behind it so that you can see it a little bit better because it's copied on a transparency. But you'll notice here at the right-hand side, you have the numbers 180 and 0. On the other side, the number 0 is up at the top. So depending if the ray is pointing this way, you would start counting with 0 and go around to a straight line, which is a straight angle, 180 degrees. If my angle was pointing this way, I would look at the 0, the lower set of numbers. So depending on which way your ray is pointing. Now, as I move this closer up to the video, you will see that every 10 degrees is marked with a multiple of 10. In between there, you have a little bit longer one, a longer line that measures every 5. So this would be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and so forth. And then in between each one, you see a very small or short line, and that marks 1 degree. So 1 degree, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so forth. So feel free to just pause the video for a minute and look at your half circle protractor. Back to lesson 610, it says write whether the angle is acute or obtuse, then measure it as accurately as you can. So I will go ahead and say that angle SDE, notice that the middle letter is always the vertex. Well, I know that angle is less than 90 degrees, so it is acute. Now, when I measure this, sometimes it helps for me to turn my sheet. You'll see that there is a little line in the middle, right here with a dot. This measures the center where the vertex is. So you want to line the dot up with that little circle right there. So I'm going to go ahead and line mine up. And see this dashed line? It needs to line up right with very, very carefully. Now, notice that I would start with 0, not 180. So 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And notice where it goes. It's between 50 and 60. So first I'll always look what two numbers it's between. Starts here, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. I would call that 56 degrees. Now, I always would give you a couple of degrees on either way, but 56 is what I am measuring it to be. Now let's go ahead and measure the next one. So if you measured 54, 55, 56, 57, I would say you're fine. Angle COR, notice the vertex is O, and therefore it's listed in the middle. This is also an acute angle. It is less than 90 degrees. And let's go ahead and measure it. Remember, I'm putting the center of that circle on letter O. Be patient with me as I have to put it down, measure it, and then lift it back up so you can see it a little bit closer. So my angle measures pointing at the lower set of numbers. I always count with 0. 0, 10, 20, 30. It's between 30 and 40. Here's 35, 36, 37. I would call that about 39 degrees, 38 degrees. So I would give you, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. All right, angle RTV. T is the middle letter, it is the vertex. This would be obtuse. It is larger than 90 degrees. And I'm actually going to go ahead and turn my sheet around just because that's the way I measure best. So I'm going to go ahead this time and measure using the top set of numbers. Notice where my dashed line is. I want to make sure that lines up exactly with that ray. Let me lift it up. Okay, so it's pointing this way. So this time I use a top set of numbers. Turn it all the way around. 110, 120, whoops. And if it slides, fix it. Now, I know it's not 40 because I just said it's obtuse and it's greater than 90. I'm still using the top numbers. 120, 100, it points right at 140 degrees. So would you please write down 140 degrees? So if you measured between 138, 39, 40, 41, somewhere in there, that would be just fine. Let's go ahead and move on to the next page in your yellow packet. This one, we're actually going to be drawing them. So they've given us one ray. What we're going to do is lay our half circle protractor. Okay, so we're going to take that middle circle right there and put it on the vertex H. So I line that up with H, and it says to go ahead, make sure your dotted line or your dashed line is lined up right with that ray. It says to measure to 35 degrees. So I'm going to go to 35 degrees. Here's 30. Halfway would be 35. I'm going to just make a little dot there. Then I'm going to use my ruler, and I'm going to connect point H, the vertex, to the point I just drew and extend that line. Don't freehand it, actually use a straight edge. All right, moving on to number 2. Draw an angle that measures 150 degrees using ray CD as one of its sides. So again, use that center point and line it up with letter C. Notice that dashed line is going to go right on top of the ray. And this time, look at where my ray is pointing. I'm going to use the top numbers, 10, 20, 30, all the way around 90 to 150. When I get to 150, I'm going to make a little point. Lift it up. Going to connect point C with the point I just drew. Again, remember, this should be 150 degrees, so it should already be very noticeable that it's more than 90 degrees. And now I have angle that measures 150 degrees. Number 3, draw an angle measuring 60 degrees using ray EF as one of its sides. Again, at any point in time, if you need to pause the video, that is your responsibility. Go ahead and pause it. Again, remembering point E is going to go right on that center point. So go ahead and line that up. Again, that dashed line should be right on top of that ray. Now, the angle is pointing this, or the ray is pointing this way, so I'm going to start with the top numbers. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Make a point. Lift up your half circle protractor. Connect point E with the newly drawn point. Please use a straight edge like the edge of your math journal or a ruler, Post-it note. And lastly, draw an angle measuring 15 degrees using ray AB as one of its sides. Now notice the ray is pointing the other way. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that down. I want you to notice something. Look at where my ray is pointing. I'm going to use the lower numbers, the ones on the bottom. I never start counting with 180, so I count with 0. So I stay with the lower numbers. I'm going to do 15 degrees. So here's 0, 10, and then halfway would be 15. So at 15 degrees, notice the little degree sign there, I'm going to make a point. Lift up my half circle protractor. Go ahead and connect point A with the newly drawn point. And now you have an angle that measures 15 degrees. So you're going to practice these. If at any point in time, again, you need to pause the video, go ahead and do so.